I'm going to turn on the recording. All right. Hello, everybody. Week number 7. This is ACT testing week. So as I was telling people before, I will not be available tomorrow to answer emails, to, correct tests and stuff like that. Usually I try to get all my tests corrected. If you guys have taken a test, you know that I'm pretty quick at correcting things. Tomorrow, not going to be able to correct anything, so be patient. I will get to them on Wednesday. And then Friday, we don't have school, so you guys don't have school. The teachers, your teachers all have faculty meeting on Friday. I'd rather have school. Okay, so this week I took out the practice. There is no practice this week, so you have access to the assessments already. The practice is gone. I deleted it, and the reason I deleted it is because I don't want kids that they have an ACT testing. I don't want them to have to do extra stuff. So practice is gone. So what are we going to do today? Well, I'm going to kind of explain what's on the assessment today, and then I'm going to talk you through it. Okay. So, and the assessment is fairly easy to do. I mean, it's a fairly easy one to do, but you do have to know how to use Desmos this week. Okay. All right. So this week, our objective is to compare linear, quadratic, exponential models. So there's a couple things you have to be able to do this week. You have to be able to take a look at a list of data and be able to tell if it's linear, quadratic, or exponential. And then you also have to be able to take a look at a graph and tell if it's linear, quadratic, or exponential. And you also have to be able to take a look at an equation and tell me if it's linear, quadratic, or exponential. So those are all things that you have to be able to do. And you also have to be able to use Desmos to come up with an exact equation for linear, quadratic, and exponential models. Okay, so it seems like a lot, but most of you will look at this and think, oh, this is way too easy. In the real world, people often gather data and then must decide what kind of relationship, if any, they think that best describes their data. So for example, let me see what my next slide is, because then I don't have to make up a problem. Okay, so problem number 1 on your assessment this week, it gives you a data table, just like this, okay? And it asks you, what type of data is it? Is it linear data? Is it exponential? Is it quadratic? Now, you could graph it out and find out, but you won't get any credit this week if you do that. The directions specifically say that you must use the first and second difference test to tell what type of data it is, okay? Now, some of you are saying, what the heck is a first and second difference test? Okay, that's the notes for today. If you're given a set of data, the y values, you take a look at the y values and you subtract them, okay? So for example, -7, I think they start this way. 5 minus 3 is 2. 3 minus 1 is 2. 1 minus -1 is 2. -1 minus -3 is 2. This is called the first difference. Okay? And it happens that the first difference is exactly the same. Okay? So the first difference is exactly the same. And what does that mean? If the first difference is the same, then your data is linear. Okay? If the first difference is the same, then the data is linear. Interesting. So now if you graph all these data points out, you see this. And you could see that that's linear, right? So that is called the first difference test. Now let's say the first difference isn't the same. Then what do? Then we go to the second difference. So we subtract all these, okay? So 9 minus 4 is 5, 4 minus 1 is 3, 1 minus 0 is 1. They're not the same, okay? They're not the same. So the first difference is not the same. So I know the data is not linear. Not linear. Why? Because the first difference is not the same. So then we go to the second difference. 5 minus 3 is 2. 3 minus 1 is 2. 1 minus negative. The second difference is the same. If that's the case, if the second difference is the same, then your data is quadratic. So problem number 1 on the assessment this week, it gives you 4 sets of data, and it asks you to use the first and second difference to figure out if it's linear or quadratic. Now, if neither of them, if the first or the second data is not the same, then what you're thinking is, oh, it could be exponential. Now, exponential, there's not a rule. It's not the first, second, third difference, and fourth difference. Exponential, you just have to take a look at the numbers. Are you always multiplying by the same thing? 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. This all has the same ratio. And that means it is exponential. But there's no test. There's no first difference test or second difference test. You just have to notice that they're always going up by the same multiple. So it's the same ratio goes up, then it is an exponential set of data. Now, somebody said that they don't think the Jamboard for this week is the correct one. I am going to go in there and I'm going to check that right now because I do not want people doing the Jamboard. That's not the right one. Let me see here. I'm just jumping into the assessment for this week. Jamboard, let's assessment 7A. Copy the document, make a copy. Yes, I want to do that. Sorry about that, guys. Taking a little bit of time. That does not look like that does not look like the assessment that's supposed to be there. So I apologize for doing this during class, but I want to make sure that you guys don't do the Jamboard that's not the right one, because that would be kind of crazy. Let's see here, second semester, week number 7. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I'm sharing this. Anyone with the link? That's right. Okay, 1 second. I think I can do this real quick here. All right. Okay. Can somebody go in to the course and check the link now? I can't send the link because then it doesn't have the copy thing on it. So so if you go into the assessment, which you should have access to now because there's no practice this week. So if you go into the assessment and click on the Jamboard thing, you should have the correct link now. So can somebody go in there and just update the assessment and see if the Jamboard is correct? It's good now? Okay. Okay. All right. Whew. Thank you for whoever said that. I wouldn't have noticed that. Thank you. Okay. So that's the first thing that you have to be able to do today on the assessment is you have to be able to use the first and second difference test to see if something is linear, quadratic, or exponential. So I think there's 4 problems like that on the assessment this week that, it's just sets of data. You just have to take a look at it and tell me, is it linear, quadratic? But in red, it says, to receive credit for this problem, you need to show your work using the first and second difference test. Why did I put that? And I just put that in yesterday because a couple kids already took the assessment and they just graphed it out and told me. Now, graphing it out is awesome. It's a good way to check to see if your answer is correct, but I want to make sure you understand the first and second difference test, okay? So that's why I put those notes in there. Where do I find the link then? Audrey, are you in the assessment? Every assessment, it's the first problem. It'll say what the assessment is. Are you in there? Audrey, do you know where to find the lesson, the assessment? Yep, we're talking about the summative, right? Because there's no formative this week. Audrey, do you know where to find the assessments? And if not, I can walk you through. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, since we don't have a lot to do this week, it'll be okay. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen here. I'm gonna share the course. Okay, so and we do have a few new students in our school now. So let me go back there. Okay, so I'm gonna share something with you guys. Okay, so share application screen. Yes, Chrome tab. Yes. Okay. All right. So Audrey, you should be seeing right now on the screen, when you go into Algebra 1, you should see this, correct? Okay, so now every week is set up exactly the same way. Okay, so what I would do is I just go to my lessons button, click on lessons, go down to the week. We're on week 7 now, so you just click on week 7. Okay, now all of this stuff up here, this is the pre-class work. You should watch that video. Once we have today's lesson done, I put the video for today in here. So this is step 1, pre-class work. I always send out a lesson tutorial on Saturday or Sunday. I don't know what day it is, or Friday. And you should watch that to see what's coming for that week. And then the textbook, you don't have to do anything in the textbook if you don't want to. But down at the very bottom, you'll see this is usually where the practice is. Now, this week, I took the practice out of there. Because kids are doing ACT testing this week, so I took the practice out. Boom, no practice this week. However, if you had to do a practice for the week, this is where it is. It's the practice right there. Now, the assessment is right here. These are our 2 assessments. So if I open this, you will see 2 assessments, 7A and 7B, okay? Now, if I click on one of the assessments, 7A or 7B, and every week we have two assessments, it's going to take me to a new tab. So you're not going to see what happens. So if I click on this, I'm in a new tab now, and you won't see that. Okay? So let me see if I can do it this way. Edit the test. I think that opens in a. Okay. So you should be able to see this now, right? Okay. So when you click on the test, it'll say start the test. This way is a little bit different. But here's the Jamboard right there. So if I click on this, I should see all of these problems. This is problem number 1. This is problem number 2. This is problem number 3. This is problem number 4. Okay, that's all there is on the assessment. So now problem number 1 is, and I said, it's all it is. It's 4 sets of data. You just tell me linear, quadratic, or whatever. But if you want to do the Jamboard, all you do is you just go up here where it says assessment 7A. You can click on that, and that will give you the Jamboard for the week. Now, what is the Jamboard? The Jamboard is exactly the same as this. It will be, the only difference with the Jamboard is you can write on it. Okay. Now, if I click on the Jamboard, I don't think I will be able to see it. I think it will open in a new tab, to tell you the truth. So let me click. Yeah. See, it opens in a new tab. So if you click on it, you should be able to see it. All right. So when I click on it, when I click on assessment 7A, it just opens in a new tab. I can't show you that because I'm on this tab, which is kind of weird, but that's the way it is. So does that make sense? Okay. Awesome. But usually every week there's a practice, and usually during class we go through all 10 problems on the practice, so kids have a head start on what they're doing for that week. But this week I took out the practice because we have ACT testing this week. Okay, so now I've got to get out of there and go back to my slides. Sorry about this. Okay, so main lesson right here. All right. So we should be down to this part right here. So now we're on the next one. So the second problem this week if you take a look at the assessment, asks you to tell me if each function is quadratic, exponential, or linear. So if I gave you this equation, y is equal to 3 times 2 to the x, what type of equation is that? Okay, is that linear? Is that quadratic? Is it exponential? It's exponential, right? Because we talked about exponential. Exponential says that you have the exponent is a variable. What about this equation? Y is equal to 2x plus 5. What type of equation is that? Linear. Linear function, the highest power in a linear function is 1. So if I gave you y is equal to 2x squared minus 3x plus 4, what type of equation is it? Quadratic. So problem number 2 on the assessment just gives you some equations, and you have to tell me, is it linear, is it quadratic, or exponential? Then it also gives you some graphs. 1, 2, 3. Let's say I gave you a graph that looked like that, or I gave you a graph that looked like this, or I gave you a graph that looked like this. Can you tell me what type of functions those are? So the first one, what type of function? Linear, exponential, quadratic. You gave me all of them, Samantha. Yeah, exactly. So problem number 2 on this week's assessment, whoa, way too easy, Mr. Shanklin. Yes, I did make it easy this week because of ACT testing. Okay, then the last thing, and so the last thing you have to be able to do is you have to be able to take a set of data and come up with the equation for it. And I mean, it's not hard. We just have to use Desmos this week. So let's say I gave you this problem. Nope. Nope. This one right here. Oh, no. We'll wait until we get to number 3. Sorry about that. Okay. Problem number 1 on the assessment this week. It says, based on the difference in y values, identify the graph as linear, quadratic, or exponential, or neither. So this is my first problem here. This is just a review of what you're going to see. Okay. Now you can find the difference going this way or the other way. So 10 minus 7 is 3. 7 minus 4 is 3. 4 minus 1 is 3. 1 minus negative 2 is 3. Negative 2 minus 5 is 3. This is a linear, and this is the work I want to see. Okay, this is what I want to see. I want to see the first difference test. Okay, all right. First difference is the same. That means it's a linear function, or this data is linear. So if I put it in a graph, it'll be a linear. All those points will make a line. How about the next one? Okay, now I could do the first difference test. I always look for exponential first. So 2 times 5 is 10. Is 0.4 times 5 2? Yes. Is 0.08 times 5 0.04? Yes. So this is always being multiplied. So if you multiply this by 5, this by 5, this by 5, it always is the same. So that means this data is exponential. Yeah. And that's usually I just try to see if it multiplies first. Okay, so that's problem number 1. You're going to be given 4 sets of data. You just have to tell me linear, exponential, or quadratic. Okay, that's problem number 1 on this week's assessment. Problem number 2 on this week's assessment, tell me what type of equations those are. So A, what type of equation is that? Exponential. Correct. Part B, quadratic. Yes. Part C, linear. And part D, is that exponential again? Why is it exponential? Because remember, anytime you have a variable as an exponent, it is an exponential function. Okay, so that's part 2. That's all. Problem number 2 on the assessment this week. That's all you've got to do. That's it. And then 3 and 4. Part 3 and 4 is a problem like this. Now, I think this is problem number 3. I'm not 100% sure. Regression means that you're coming up with, you're fitting a set of data to a model, okay? So a regression model is one that you use a calculator. Now, we used to have to do this by hand, and it was tough, but now we can use a calculator. So in this problem, and I think this is problem number 3. Is anybody looking at the assessment right now? Is this problem number 3? I think it is. Okay. Number 3 and 4 are basically the same type of problems. I think I ask a few more questions on number 3, don't I? I ask you to plug the values back in. I'm not 100% sure, but this is what you have to do. You're going to be given a set of data. You have to come up with a regression model. Okay. What is a regression model? A regression model is an equation that fits that data as best as possible. Okay. So I want you to use this data. I want you to come up with a linear regression model and an exponential regression model. Okay. But you can't do it by hand. Okay. You just can't. Okay. Yes, you're right. You're right. In Jamboard, it's 3 and 4. On the regular test, it's like 4 and 5. Yeah, because Jamboard is number 1. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to be able to use Desmos to come up with our data. So I'm going to walk you through how to do problem number 3. Okay, so what you need to do is you have to be able to go to Desmos. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to share Desmos with you guys. Desmos is a free thing. So, oh, darn it. I didn't take attendance. Wait. Before I go on, I always forget to do that. Let's see here. I got like 20 windows open right now, or tabs open right now. Okay, Algebra 2, semester 2, week number 7. Okay, week number 7. Got it. 7. Okay. And got too many kids in this class. I gotta take 2 screenshots to get everybody in. Okay. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to take you guys to Desmos, and let's see your share application screen. I want Chrome tab, Desmos. Okay. So you guys see my Desmos presentation. And all I did is I just went into Desmos. I just typed in the website Desmos and it comes up. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through problem number 3. First thing you have to do is you have to plug the data in. Okay. How do you do that? You just go to this plus sign and you ask it to do a table. So I'm going to do a table and I'm going to put my X values in. Now, if you take a look at the test, it has like 2001, 2002, 2003, and so on. You don't want to put that in there. You want to put in 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. It makes it a whole lot easier. So I'm just going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I believe. And over here, I'm going to put in my Y values. Okay, so it was 5.66, 5.81. And make sure you do it exact. I've had 3 kids turn in this assessment already, and their answers are super close, but they better be exact. You can't just come up and give me an answer that's close. The computer is going to always generate the same answer regardless, as long as you put the data points in right. And I'm just assuming the ones that were close just did not put the exact data values in. I didn't. Maybe they were right and I was wrong. We'll see. 718 and then 7.50. And okay. So if you take a look at this data, and it's graphed out right here, what type of data does it look like? Just by looking at the data points. It's a wiggly line, linear or exponential? Yeah, I would say linear or exponential. It looks like it's starting to go up at the very end, so it could be exponential. But it wants me to write an equation for linear and exponential, okay? And you're right, it's neither of them are going to match perfectly, okay? But it wants me to write an equation for both. It wants me to write a regression equation for linear and one for exponential. So how do I write an equation? Exactly, line of best fit. That's exactly right. So how do I write? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write an equation for an for a linear function. Okay, so I'm just going to add, and down here you're going to put y is equal to mx plus b, basically, right? That's what we're going to do. Bah, very good, Samantha. But you did forget the 1 behind the x. It's going to be y1 tilde symbol mx1 plus b. A linear function is y is equal to mx plus b, right? But in order for the computer to know what you're doing, you have to tell it y1, because look up here in my data table, that's y1. And then we have to use a tilde symbol. What is a tilde symbol? Go down to the little keyboard, go down to ABC, and see this little squiggly line? That is called a tilde symbol. Okay, so now I have y1 is equal to tilde and then mx plus b. But remember, my x is the data table, so that really is x1 plus b. And then I'm just going to find plus b, and there is my equation. Now, some of you, and do you see how it graphed it in already also? It graphed my equation in. Now, what is my equation? Well, guess what? They give us, the computer calculated the m and the b values. So if I wanted to write my equation, it is y is equal to 0.237939 x plus 5.297, 5.297. And do you see how the red line that I just typed in my equation, you see how the red line went directly over the black line? That means my equation is correct. Okay, the way I typed it in there is correct. And now if I would have, let's say I would have missed, let's say I would have, let's say I put a 4 here instead. Okay, you can tell right away that my equation is not correct, because the black one that goes through the data points is the one that the computer generated, and then the one that I did in red, that doesn't even come close to matching it, right? That's because I didn't put my equation in correctly. It should have been a 2, and then you can see that that line is perfectly on top of it. Okay, so that's a good way of checking to see if your equation is correct. So now we've got our linear function. What happens if they ask me to find the data in what, 2000 and I don't know, I forgot when this started, and now I don't have, I can bring up the test. Okay, so let's say I asked you for a question about what is the average movie ticket in the year 2020? How do you think I could solve that? Let's say I wanted 2020. I wanted to know what the price of a movie theater ticket was in the year 2020. What do you think I would do? X equals 20. That is exactly right. Now, if I wanted to do that, all I'd have to do is put 20 in here, don't I? Can I do that? I think I can put 20 in there. I think it, oh, darn it. For that X, I just put 20 in there. 10.0561. So a movie theater in the year 2020, using this model to predicts it to be $10.05. No, so hover over the point. So 20, so here, oh, somebody, yes, that, oops, I'm on the wrong sheet. 20, so if I go here, oh, look at that, $10.05. Yes. So there's many ways of doing it. Okay, now, it also asked me to write an equation, an exponential equation, right? So I'm just going to get rid of these. They asked me to write a regression for exponential. Okay, so again, y1, so that is tilde, and then I need my tilde symbol. And then remember, an exponential is a times b. I'm going to put a multiplication sign in there just so I don't mess up here. Where's my multiplication symbol? A times b to the x power, right? But remember, it's going to be x to the 1 because it's there. So now, look at that. It gave me my equation. Does the line go through the points? Does the exponential function fit the data? I can use that. Okay. So an exponential function looks like it pretty much goes through those points also. So that is basically your test today. I did make it fairly easy this week. So those of you that are taking the ACT test, you don't have to, struggle. But that's it. Any questions on this week's test? Exactly. I mean, Desmos is awesome. It really is. That is it for this week. I know it's a short, it didn't take us all hour to get through everything, but we went through everything that's on your test this week. No, you do not. You don't have to screenshot Desmos. No. Do not indeed. Yeah, that would make some kids go freaky out. For summative 7b, I didn't even look at 7b. What are you looking at 7b for? Let me jump into 7b. I never look at the multiple choice ones. Oh, this is okay. It's just asking you what type of, it's not asking you to do anything. Just tell what type of function it would be. Now, if you're, and you don't even have to be in physics or anything like that to get this answer, but when you're dealing with, they gave you, it says that the half-life of carbon-14 is 573 years. Half-life. That means, so let me get back. I need a screen here. So let's say you had 100 pounds of something. And it says that the half-life is, 67 years or whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. So that means half of it would be 50, wouldn't it? And then in the other half, then I take half of that, that gives me 25. Take half of that, that gives me 12.5. Take half of that, that gives me what? 6.75? What type of data is this? It is definitely exponential. It's going down exponentially. It's cutting in half every I don't know how many years that was. Every 5,730 years. Every 5,730 years, it loses half of its potential. Now, having the mass, that's exactly right. And that's why, when they talk about atomic, if there was an atomic war or something like that, and you've got all that radiation takes, for radiation, it's like the half-life is just so slow. That's why it takes forever for radiation to go away, because the half-life of radiation is, I don't know what it is. It's hundreds of years. So that means, if you have 10 pounds of radiation, I mean, to get rid of that, it's going to take thousands of years because you just keep having it. Yeah. So I forgot who asked that question. Does that help for that problem? And that's all they wanted you to do. Right. Yeah. Exponential is always something that if you look at the data, if you can multiply it by, because that's called the ratio. It's always going up by a ratio or down by a ratio. So yes, that is absolutely correct. All right. You guys are free to go. Next week definitely will be a little bit tougher. But remember, what is after next week? So this is week 7. Next week is week 8. Then what comes after? Spring break. That is exactly right. It's crazy that we have spring break already. And there's still snow on the ground. All right. You guys have a great week. For those of you that are taking ACT tests, do your very best. Bye.